How do the Japanese cool their homes without modern technology? Your house could be over 20 degrees cooler during the hottest part of the day if you apply the same methods they've been using for centuries, and they work just as well in a 3-bedroom house in Ohio as they do in a small apartment in Japan. From moving the stuffy air out of your house to cutting the heat off your worst window before it ever gets inside. I'm going to show you how to cool your house for about $20 with no electricity and no air conditioning. So get comfortable and let's get into it. Let's start with the sudare, which is pronounced sudare. It's a simple roll of thin reed or bamboo slats hung on the outside of the window. I know what you're thinking. How does a thin sheet of dry grass cool down a house? Well, heat builds up indoors because sunlight passes through your glass first. And then once it's inside the room, it converts into heat. So anything that blocks the sun before it touches your glass window stops heat from coming into your house. This is why exterior shading beats interior shading every single time, and it's not even close. The US Department of Energy actually put numbers on this. Hang something on the outside of a south-facing window and you block up to 65% of the heat. Do it on a west-facing window, the side that catches the worst afternoon sun, and you block up to 77%. Compare that to closing your blinds from the inside, which only stops about 45% of the heat. By the time you pull those blinds shut, the sun has already passed through the glass and the heat is already in the room, bouncing off your floor and your furniture. The blinds are just shading you from light at that point. The heat is already inside. Now here's what to do tonight. Roll-up bamboo or reed shades for outdoor use are sold at most hardware stores, places like Home Depot or Lowe's, and the realistic price runs about $20 to $40 per window depending on size. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it's $5. Hang them on a simple bracket or a couple of hooks above the window frame. No professional install needed, and you can do every window on the worst side of your house in one afternoon. But what happens when the sun is already down and the pavement around your house is still radiating heat from the day? That's where the next method comes in, and it costs nothing. Before we continue, I wrote a book that gathers all of the money-saving methods the Japanese have used for centuries to keep their land, home, and family in good order. It is at thejapanesemethod.com. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy. If you want it, it is there. Now, have you ever walked past a sidewalk after a summer thunderstorm and felt that sudden cool air rising off the wet concrete? That smell of wet pavement, that drop in temperature you can feel at your ankles? The Japanese figured out how to recreate that effect on purpose, on demand, with nothing but a bucket of water. The practice is called Uchimizu, pronounced Uchimizu, and it goes back to the Edo period in the 17th century. Households would sprinkle water on the pavement, the walkway, the small patch of ground right outside the front door, in the late afternoon and into the evening. How can a few cups of water poured on a hot stone surface drop the temperature of a whole front yard? The cooling principle behind Uchimizu is evaporation. When water turns to vapor, it has to draw energy from somewhere, and the energy it draws is heat. The ground gives up that heat to power the evaporation, so the surface cools, and the air just above it cools with it. It's the same principle that makes sweat cool your skin. A 2017 study from TU Delft in the Netherlands, conducted by a researcher named Anna Saltarova, used a high-resolution temperature sensing setup to measure exactly what Uchimizu does to a paved surface. The study confirmed that it works, and it identified one important detail. The effect is strongest when the water is applied during the cooler parts of the day, in the evening or early morning, and ideally in shade. If you sprinkle water on hot pavement at midday, the sun evaporates it too quickly to do much real cooling. The Tokyo government has been running a city-wide Uchimizu campaign called Uchimizu Daisakusen since 2003. In its first year, about 340,000 people took part, and the average measured air temperature drop in event sites was around 1 degree Celsius. In some locations, the local drop was as high as 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius. You can feel it when you do it yourself. Sprinkle a bucket of water across a hot driveway in the evening, and within minutes there's that petrichor smell of wet stone, and the air at ankle height feels different. Your kids will notice it before you do. Use a hose, a watering can, or even reuse water from the bathtub or the dish rinse, and sprinkle it across your driveway, your patio, or the walkway outside your front door once the sun gets low. Do this in the late afternoon or evening when the sun isn't going to flash. Boil the water before it has a chance to work. You've blocked the sun from coming in, and you've cooled the ground outside. But the air inside your house still isn't moving, and stuffy, still air is half of what makes a hot room feel unbearable. The Japanese had a method for that as well. Picture a still, humid bedroom on a July night. You crack one window open hoping for a breeze, you stand near it for a minute, and you feel almost nothing. The air just sits there. Most of us have done this, standing at one open window waiting for relief that never quite arrives. Traditional Japanese homes solve this with sliding shoji panels, pronounced shoji, the paper screens often seen in pictures of old Japanese rooms. The purpose of shoji was never the paper itself. It was that you could reconfigure which openings in the house were active at any given moment. A Japanese household always made sure air had a path through the room, not just a path in. Opening a second window 30 feet away from the first one can make a bigger difference than turning on a fan. The principle at work is what building scientists call cross-ventilation. A single open window has nowhere for the air to exit, so any breeze that enters eddies near the opening and barely penetrates the room. The research on this is clear. Single-sided ventilation, meaning one opening, is only effective to a depth of about 2 to 2.5 times the ceiling height of the room. In a room with 8-foot ceilings, your useful air movement may be 16 to 20 feet in from the window, and that's it. Cross-ventilation, with openings on 2 different walls, is effective up to about 5 times the ceiling height because the air now has somewhere to go. These figures are used in building design guides like the CIBSE Natural Ventilation Guidance, and they've been confirmed in wind tunnel and computer simulation studies published in journals like Building and Environment. It's measured, not opinion. You can feel the difference the moment you create that second opening. Stand in a stuffy room with one window cracked, sweat sitting on your forearms. Then walk to the other side of the house and open a window there. Walk back into the first room, and there's air moving across your skin that wasn't there a minute ago. Hey, it's almost instantaneous. The room you've been sitting in for an hour transforms in about 10 seconds. And you didn't add a fan, didn't turn anything on, didn't spend $1. Most of us have a single window open in the room we're sitting in, and every other window in the house closed, and we wonder why nothing feels like it's moving. Open 2 windows on different walls of the same room at the same time. Not just one for fresh air. If a room only has windows on one wall, prop the bedroom door open into the hallway and open a window at the far end of the house to create the through path. That's the entire technique, and once you start paying attention to where your openings are, you'll do it automatically every evening. So now you have air moving sideways through your house. But what if there's no wind outside at all? One of those dead, calm summer evenings where nothing is moving anywhere. The Japanese had an answer for that too. Picture a traditional Japanese home with a small shaded courtyard in the middle of it, called a tsubaniwa, pronounced tsubo-niwa. It's a tiny garden tucked inside the floor plan of the house, kept in shade by the surrounding rooms and the deep eaves of the roof. That pocket of shaded ground stays cooler than anywhere else, and that small temperature difference pulls the warm air out of the rest of the house, all by itself, without any wind at all. A difference of a few degrees between 2 parts of a house can move enough air to cool the whole place down. The principle here is called the stack effect. Warm air is less dense than cool air, so it rises. If you open a low window on the cool, shaded side of a house and a high window on the warm, sunny side, the rising warm air escaping through the high opening continuously pulls cool air in through the low one. It becomes a self-sustaining loop driven entirely by temperature difference, and it works even on a completely still day with 0 wind. This is the same building science principle behind the cross-ventilation just described, except it works vertically instead of horizontally, and the effect runs across a width of up to about 5 times the ceiling height when you have vertical separation between the inlet and the outlet. When the stack effect is working in your house, you can feel it as a draft moving past your ankles or up a stairwell on what should be a still evening. There's no fan running, no wind outside, and yet there's air moving. Open a basement window or a ground floor window on the shaded side of your house. Then open an upstairs window or an attic window or an attic vent on the sunny side. Do it in the morning and again in the evening, when the temperature gradient between inside and outside is at its strongest. This works particularly well in any home with a staircase, a split level, or an attic vent up top. The cost is 0. You have the air moving through your house in 2 different directions. But once that air reaches you, what is it actually touching? What's the air sitting against when you go to bed? The next method has nothing to do with airflow at all. Lie down in bed on a summer night wearing polyester pajamas on a set of polyester sheets. By 2 in the morning, that clammy, sticky feeling on your skin isn't from the heat itself. It's from sweat that has nowhere to go. The fabric is sealing it against your body. Now imagine the same temperature, same room, same humidity, but lying on a cotton or linen sheet instead. A completely different experience. The traditional Japanese answer to this is the floor itself, the tatami mat, pronounced tatami, woven from a rush grass called igusa over a compressed rice straw core. The type of fiber under your feet can change how hot a whole room feels. The property at work in tatami is called hygroscopicity. It's a long word for a simple idea. Natural plant fibers are porous and they absorb moisture from the air or from your skin when you make contact with them, then slowly release that moisture later when conditions change. Synthetic fibers like polyester do the opposite. They're hydrophobic, meaning they repel water, so any sweat or humidity stays trapped against your skin, creating a damp microclimate that makes you feel hotter than the thermometer says you should. Because how hot a room feels is driven heavily by humidity. Not just air temperature, this choice of material changes how the same room feels at the exact same temperature reading. According to figures from the Miyagi Prefectural Tatami Manufacturers Association, the rice straw core of a tatami floor in an 11 square meter room can absorb roughly 3 liters of ambient moisture from the air and release it back when the room dries out. That's a measured property of natural fiber, and the same property is at work in cotton sheets, linen curtains, and wool rugs. Switch your polyester sheets for linen and the first night feels almost suspicious. The fabric stays cool against your skin even at 2 in the morning, when synthetic sheets would have you sweating through them. On your next trip to the store, swap polyester bed sheets, rugs, or curtains for cotton or linen. Linen wicks moisture the fastest of the common options, which is why it's been used in hot climates for thousands of years. This is a laundry aisle purchase, not a renovation, and the cost is whatever a decent set of cotton or linen sheets goes for, which is within reach of most households. You've shaded the windows, cooled the ground outside, set the air moving in 2 directions, and put the right fabric against your skin. One thing keeps coming back in the story, and that's the sun. You can block the sun on a much bigger scale, across the entire side of your house, without rebuilding the roof. Stand outside a traditional Japanese home on a summer afternoon and look at where the shadow falls on the wall. The roof sticks out far past the wall itself, much further than what you see on most American houses. And there's a clear shadow line cutting across the building. Just past the line, the wall is blazing hot in the sun. Just before the line, the wall is still comfortable to the touch. This is the work of the deep eave, called noki, pronounced no-ki. Japanese builders size these eaves using the seasonal angle of the sun, blocking the high summer sun that beats down at a steep angle, while still letting in the low winter sun that comes in nearly sideways. A strip of overhanging roof, just a couple of feet wide, can do as much for a whole house as an entire air conditioning system can do for a single room. The physics here is the same as the Sudar screens, but applied at a much bigger scale. Block the solar radiation before it ever reaches the glass, before it reaches the wall, before any of it has a chance to convert into heat inside your home. The numbers are the same ones given for Sudar, because the Department of Energy figures apply to any exterior shading device. Up to 65% reduction in solar heat gain on south-facing windows and up to 77% on west-facing windows. 77% for something with no moving parts, no electricity, and no maintenance. The Department of Energy also notes that lighter colored awning fabric reflects more sunlight and pushes that number higher. You can see this work in real time on the wall of any home that has it. There's a literal line on the siding, blazing hot just past it, cool to the touch just before it. The wall behind the eave never had a chance to start heating up in the first place, and a wall that isn't heating up isn't radiating that heat into the rooms behind it after sundown either. You don't need to rebuild your roof to get this benefit. Install a retractable fabric awning or a simple shade cloth frame over the south-facing or west-facing windows of your house. Those are the ones catching the worst afternoon sun. A retrofit awning typically doesn't require a permit, doesn't need a contractor, and can be installed in a day. 77% of the heat gain on your worst windows, gone for the price of one awning per window. You've shut the sun out at every scale. But the cooler air of evening is still coming, and the Japanese had one last habit that ties everything together, a habit that has more to do with timing than with any object you can buy. Picture a Japanese household on a summer evening. The sun is finally down. The pavement is cooling. The breeze is starting to move. The household opens every window, every door, every screen they can, all at once. They sit outside on the ingawa, the wooden veranda, in the cool of the evening. This habit is called yusuzumi, pronounced yusuzumi, and it's about more than enjoying the evening. It's the heart of a strategy that building scientists today call night flushing, or night purge ventilation. Opening your house at the right moment and closing it at the right moment can change the temperature inside your home for the entire next day. The principle behind yusuzumi is the relationship between indoor and outdoor temperature over 24 hours. Once the outdoor temperature drops below the indoor temperature in the evening, which usually happens shortly after sunset, you open the house up completely. Every window, every door if you can manage it. You let the cool night air flush all the heat that built up inside during the day right out of the building. Then, at first light, before the outdoor temperature climbs back above your indoor temperature, you seal everything shut, not just the windows, the curtains too. You trap the night's coolness inside the walls and the floors and the furniture, and that stored coolness carries you through most of the next day. This is a well-documented, peer-reviewed passive cooling strategy. There's academic building science research on night ventilation performance across different climates, including thesis work from the University of California, and the broader passive cooling literature backs it up. I have to be honest about this one because the truth matters. Night flushing works extremely well in dry inland American climates. Phoenix, Sacramento, Denver, most of the inland west where the nights can drop 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit below the daytime high. In those climates, this single habit alone can change your relationship with summer. It works much less well in humid coastal climates and Gulf climates, where the nights stay warm and stay humid. If you live in Houston or New Orleans or Miami, you'll get some benefit, but not as much. And I'd rather tell you that now than oversell it. Most of the other 6 methods will still work for you. This one specifically works best where the day to night swing is large. The sensory payoff of yusuzumi is worth trying, because it's strange the first time you feel it. You open everything at sundown and the house starts to breathe. You close everything at sunrise, like sealing a thermos, and the house stays cool well into the next afternoon. Buy a cheap indoor-outdoor thermometer for a few dollars at any hardware store, so you can see exactly when the outdoor temperature drops below your indoor temperature. Open everything fully at that point. Close everything, windows and curtains both, at sunrise before the outdoor temperature climbs back. Beyond the thermometer, this costs nothing. Once you start doing it, you'll feel summer as a cycle of opening and closing instead of a wall of heat you have to fight against. If you sit back and look at what these households actually accomplished, it's worth pausing on. They created homes that stayed comfortable through some of the hottest, most humid summers on the planet, with no machines at all, just shade, just water, just airflow, just the right materials. Just the timing of when to open the house and when to close it. None of these methods are expensive. Most of them are free or close to it. And every single one of them works just as well in a 3-bedroom house in Ohio, or a ranch house in Texas, or a bungalow in California, as it does in a traditional home in Tokyo. The physics doesn't care which country your house is in. Heat behaves the same way everywhere. You don't have to do all 7 at once. That's the wrong way to approach this. Pick the one that matches the worst problem you have right now. If your west-facing windows are cooking your living room every afternoon, start with sudari or an awning. If your bedroom is stuffy at night, start with cross ventilation and the stack effect. If you wake up at 2 in the morning soaked in sweat, change your sheets to linen. If you live somewhere with cool, dry nights, start with the night flush habit and see what happens. Run one method for a week or 2 until it's automatic, until you're doing it without thinking, and then add the next one. By the end of the summer, you'll have a house that handles the heat in a way it never did before, and you won't have spent much to get there. Your air conditioning bill drops in a way you can see on the statement because the AC isn't fighting as hard, or in some hours isn't running at all. If this opened your eyes, subscribe and share this video with someone who's been complaining about their air conditioning bill all summer. And if you want the full collection of Japanese cleaning secrets, remember to check the Japanese Method book. The book gathers all of the money-saving methods the Japanese have used for centuries to keep their land, home, and family in good shape. It is at thejapanesemethod.com. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy, and let me know in the comments once you get it. Next week, we are covering the Japanese method for getting rid of all pests without using chemical bug spray. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.